Good morning, Little Masters, and welcome back to today's Tolkien Times. I'm the Man of the West, also from the Prancing Pony podcast, and let's wrap up week 48 with Second Age Saturday. Now, last week, we watched Erendis' bitterness continue to grow and become even colder after Aldarion failed to arrive after the 2 years that he had promised. We also watched as 7-year-old Ancalame met a boy who was quickly shooed off. Now today, Aldarion returns and finds his father and Erendis just a little less happy to see him. The days passed, bringing in another year, and then another. In that spring, Ancalame was 9 years old. Lambs were born and grew. Shearing came and passed. A hot summer burned the grass. Autumn turned to rain. Then, out of the east, upon a cloudy wind, Hirolonde came back over the grey seas, bearing Aldarion to Romenna, and word was sent to Emerie, but Erendis did not speak of it. There were none to greet Aldarion upon the quays. He rode through the rain to Armenelos, and he found his house shut. He was dismayed, but he would ask news of no man. First he would seek the king, for he thought he had much to say to him. He found his welcome no warmer than he looked for, and Meneldor spoke to him as king to a captain whose conduct is in question. "You have been long away," he said coldly. "It is more than 3 years now since the date that you set for your return." "Alas," said Aldarion, "even I have become weary of the sea, and for long my heart has yearned westward. But I have been detained against my heart. There is much to do, and all things go backward in my absence." "I do not doubt it," said Meneldor. "You will find it true here also in your right land, I fear." "That I hope to redress," said Aldarion. "But the world is changing again. Outside, nigh on 1,000 years have passed since the lords of the West sent their power against Angband, and those days are forgotten, or wrapped in dim legend among men of Middle-earth. They are troubled again, and fear haunts them. I desire greatly to consult with you, to give account of my deeds and my thought concerning what should be done." "You shall do so," said Meneldor. "Indeed, I expect no less. But there are other matters which I judge more urgent. Let a king first rule well his own house ere he correct others, it is said. It is true of all men. I will now give you counsel, son of Meneldor. You have also a life of your own. Half of yourself you have ever neglected. To you I say now, go home." Aldarion stood suddenly still, and his face was stern. "If you know, tell me," he said. "Where is my home?" "Where your wife is," said Meneldor. "You have broken your word to her, whether by necessity or no. She dwells now in Emerie, in her own house, far from the sea. Thither you must go at once." "Had any word been left for me whither to go, I would have gone directly from the haven," said Aldarion. "But at least I need not now ask tidings of strangers." He turned then to go, but paused, saying, "Captain Aldarion has forgotten somewhat that belongs to his other half, which in his waywardness he also thinks urgent. He has a letter that he was charged to deliver to the king in Armenelos." Presenting it to Meneldor, he bowed and left the chamber, and within an hour he took horse and rode away, though night was falling. With him he had but 2 companions, men from his ship, Henderk of the Westlands, and Ulbar, who came from Emerie. Riding hard, they came to Emerie at nightfall of the next day, and men and horses were weary. Cold and white looked the house on the hill in a last gleam of sunset under cloud. He blew a horn call as soon as he saw it from afar. As he leapt from his horse in the forecourt, he saw Erendis. Clad in white, she stood upon the steps that went up to the pillars before the door. She held herself high, but as he drew near, he saw that she was pale, and her eyes overbright. "You come late, my lord," she said. "I had long ceased to expect you. I fear that there is no such welcome prepared for you as I had made when you were due." "Mariners are not hard to please," he said. "That is well," she said, and she turned back into the house and left him. Then 2 women came forward, and an old crone who went down the steps. As Aldarion went in, she said to the men in a loud voice so that he could hear her, "There is no lodging for you here. Go down to the homestead at the hill's foot." "No, Zameen," said Ulbar, "I'll not stay. I'm for home by the Lord Aldarion's leave. Is all well there?" "Well enough," said she. "Your son has eaten himself out of your memory. But go and find your own answers. He'll be warmer there than your captain." Erendis did not come to the table at his late evening meal, and Aldarion was served by women in a room apart. But before he was done, she entered, and said before the women, "You will be weary, my lord, after such haste. A guest room is made ready for you when you will. My women will wait on you. If you are cold, call for fire." Aldarion made no answer. He went early to the bedchamber, and being now weary indeed, he cast himself on the bed, and forgot soon the shadows of Middle-earth and of Numenor in a heavy sleep. But at cock-crow he woke to a great disquiet and anger. He rose at once, and thought to go without noise from the house. He would find his man, Henderk, and the horses, and ride to his kinsman, Halatan, the sheep-lord of Hirastorni. Later he would summon Erendis to bring his daughter to Armenelos, and not have dealings with her upon her own ground. But as he went out towards the doors, Erendis came forward. She had not lain in bed that night, and she stood before him on the threshold. "You leave more promptly than you came, my lord," she said. "I hope that, being a mariner, you have not found this house of women irksome already, to go thus before your business is done. Indeed, what business brought you hither? May I learn it before you leave?" "I was told in Armenelos that my wife was here, and had removed my daughter hither," he answered. "As to the wife, I am mistaken, it seems. But have I not a daughter?" "You had one some years ago," she said, "but my daughter has not yet risen." "Then let her rise, while I go for my horse," said Aldarion. "Oh, look," said a grumpy Aldarion, "it's the consequences of my actions." Look, I don't mean to make light of it. Truth is, it doesn't make this tragedy any harder to read. The thing is, it's only going to get more difficult. In a couple of weeks, actually next series, we'll open and read the letter from Gil-galad to King Meneldor, and that is going to complicate how we view Aldarion's actions. For now, though, it's just a big tragedy to see his utter refusal to acknowledge that his actions have led to so much hurt. And it's also sad to see her coldness. I mean, it's understandable. It's such an ugly situation. And, like I said, it's only going to get more difficult to figure out, because what Aldarion has done is going to turn out to be fairly important. And that's going to make it pretty difficult to sort of kind of judge things. But man, I don't want to be him right now. That is for sure. Folks, that does it for this week's Second Age Saturday. Thank you for joining me. But be sure to come back next week as Aldarion meets, briefly, his estranged daughter. Please visit patreon.com/TolkienTimes to learn how you can support the show, get an ad-free feed, join my content council, get a bonus episode every week, and more. And please, if you're watching this on YouTube, like and subscribe. Please follow or subscribe in your podcast apps, and follow @TolkienTimes on social media. Finally, as Faramir says, go with the goodwill of all good men.